Hi, I'm Michael Artsis. Thanks so much for joining us for our continuing coverage here at IBC 2014. Teradek's continuing live coverage of the International Broadcasting Convention from the Netherlands, Amsterdam to be exact, the RAI Convention Center. And it's so amazing here, so much going on. We're in the Vitek Group brand booth, and that's because Teradek is a Vitek Group brand. Vitek is an amazing company that has an amazing portfolio of camera and technology companies that are phenomenal. You know them, Manfrotto, Sackler, Bexell, O'Connor, the list goes on and on. Light panels, check them all out. We've got Michael Cioni here from Light Iron. Light Iron's an amazing company, and you're an amazing guy because you're the brains behind it. You've figured it all out. You've got all these creative ideas and amazing things. You know, I first met you at NAB a couple of years ago. Actually, I think it's like 3 or 4 years ago
probably.
now. And you guys were doing amazing stuff with proxies for filmmakers, basically to iPads and making dailies or using Teradek devices. So you'd basically hook a Teradek device up to a camera. It would send the live feed to the iPad, and each time they'd hit record and hit it again, it would make a clip. You could do all this metadata notes and all this other stuff that was unbelievable. So really awesome stuff. What else are you guys doing these days? What's new? I imagine you're still doing that stuff.
We sure are, but you know, I really think what's cool is it's like a neo production world, and Vitek specifically, and sort of the groups that they put together. If we have great ideas, we need groups that are able to manufacture the components to make that successful, right? And the truth is, there's nothing wrong with the history and legacy groups that built the infrastructures for all the production that we've had for so many decades. But now it's becoming an IT-centric world, right? An IT-centric infrastructure for production. And a lot of the companies that built some of the greatest things aren't electronic manufacturers, right? And I think what is personally, this is me speaking personally, and honestly about Vitek is the hybrid sort of fusion between some of the groups like O'Connor, you know, which is obviously, we don't really have robot tripods yet, but when you mix it with something like Vitek or Anton Bauer or something like that, all of a sudden your brain goes, wait a minute, why can't we have that? Why can't we have a self-leveling tripod? Why can't we have something that incorporates some of the electronics or the batteries and stuff into the tripod itself? Those are ideas that are only possible when you merge these types of companies together so that you can come up with ideas that, you know, had limited boundaries
That's
before.
a brilliant idea, actually. I never thought about that, but putting batteries in the tripods.
They're heavy already.
Tripods, yeah,
right?
they're already heavy, so why not just let them be the heaviest
20
part?
pounds, right?
Yeah.
And then you don't need to plug, you know,
well, but you're also
in.
you're adding nice weight to the tripod if you put like a battery in each leg, so to speak. Maybe you could do a little bit lighter or smaller battery.
You can reconfirm that, and then when you make your O'Connor head, when the camera plugs in that, it powers automatically.
Right, and then you don't have to worry about it tipping. Not that you ever have to worry about it tipping over, but even in like high wind, you don't have to worry about sandbags and stuff like that. I like this idea.
We just thought of something, right?
We did just think of something.
And then you put a cube in the counter head. The good ones are, you know, like the fluid heads, like this big, right?
Put a cube in there.
Put a cube in there, right? And just have the tripod make the proxies for you.
Look at this. Look at us doing R&D for Vitek right here.
I'll send you the bill.
And so what's going on at Light Iron? You guys, I mean, it's just like, I love what you guys do. Well, it's so innovative all the time.
One thing that I think is fun for technology-driven creative people, which I call technatives, I think we're just finishing the new David Fincher film called Gone Girl. And what's cool about it is it's shot on the new Red Dragon camera.
Beautiful
and
camera.
It's actually a 6K picture, but we actually did the movie, which is 19 megapixels. We actually did the movie in 6K. Wow. David and his team used Adobe workflow for all the offline and dailies, and we ended up doing a 6K feature movie, and it comes out October 4th. In 4K, so the 4K is actually our down conversion.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you know.
How did it look in 6K? Can you even? Is there anything to even view it on?
No, there's not. You have to view it in 4K. But it's kind of that funny thing. When we used the word down convert, we meant high def to standard def.
Right.
Well, 6K is actually 9 times bigger than 2K. So it's like 11 or 12 times bigger than HD. and we had to down convert to 4K. And that doesn't mean people should think it's going to be so sharp that it will like hurt your eyes. It's not like that. It's just got so much dimension and texture.
Well, and I mean, that's what's interesting, because when you look at 4K footage that's been down-res to HD, right, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
It really does. And you can really see the dynamic range that you get, the detail that you get is unbelievable. So
Yep.
I can only imagine what 6K to 4K looks like. And I bet you it pushes the limits of 4K even further than we traditionally see with 4K.
Yeah. And I think it'll be good for... I believe 4K will be an exhibition platform for quite a while.
Yeah.
People don't need to think, oh, 4K and then 8K and whatever. 4K will be great for distribution for quite a while, a good decade or two, I think.
Do you think that it gets to be where the point where, like, okay, this is good enough, we don't need to go, especially for like television, we don't need to make television 6K, 8K, the next K?
I guarantee you people have been asking that question for 100 years.
That's true.
And they everybody
started with when the black and white picture lost its snow and actually became a good
That's
image.
right, yeah. And even back when like people shot like 4x5s, you know, like Civil War photos are incredible because they're super high resolution, you know. The point is,
You just had to stand there for 4 minutes while they took
that's
the picture.
true. You couldn't move. But the truth is, I think it's not a good idea for technology-driven people and futurists to think what is good enough. Don't ever put that ceiling on your own mind.
I like that.
Figure out what is the best you can do today, and if that changes tomorrow, then you
Then
now
do
are
that.
obligated to do that.
Yeah.
And the last thing we want to do is be a generation or a group or a market that 10 years or 20 years from now people look back and be like, what were they thinking, you know? Like, we don't want to be that. We want them to look back and go, those were the groups that pushed the boundaries, those are the people that didn't, and this is the direction we ended up going. And so I want to be associated with people that don't put boundaries on what's possible.
So then, if that's the case, and if that's true, then how is 4K good for the next decade, maybe two? Because, you know, we already are seeing 6K in some places, and Ikegami at NAB talked about 8K.
I think, yeah, they're absolutely right. So I believe that it's not about the acquisition. Think about IMAX. Everyone knows IMAX is better than 35.
Right.
We rarely see IMAX projected. Sometimes we do, but people would down convert it to 35 and it looks great. Right? So you could shoot higher quality pictures and print it down, sort of like you said, 6:4, and the 4 is optimized. So I think in terms of mass production of TVs and projectors and things like that, 4 is a great place to call a plateau. Shoot 5, shoot 6, shoot 8, and it'll live at 4 for quite a long time. I think the 8K development cycle, which is mainly an Asian initiative, I think it makes more sense with, they're sort of targeting sports as sort of their thing about it. I am not a sports expert. I'm not a live type of person. I don't know that
I'm
stuff.
a sports guy. I could talk. I don't see it though for sports. I don't. To me, I actually love the creative aspect of it. I love you know, the movie making aspect and making your shots better and the lighting and the dynamic range and the detail in that.
Yeah.
I mean, how much more detail do I need in sports really? Like, I could see the laces of a football. I could see the leather or the pigskin. I could see the blades of grass. I remember when HD came out, when it first came out, looking at 720 we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't even full HD, right?
Yeah.
And being able to see the fabric on the guys' jerseys when they did close-ups, and that was amazing. And I don't know that, I mean, I'm not putting a ceiling on it, but why would you need it for sports? I could see it for other things first. For sports, I would see it as the last thing in my mind, especially because sports are almost always live.
It's true.
And the transmission, that's a transmission issue.
Transmission issue. What I think has the best properties of anything above 4K is the fact that if you shoot a larger image, you have the ability to reframe.
And that's why they like it for sports. That's the one reason, because
and
actually I have a friend at Canon who works on the C500, and they, for the World Baseball Classic, they were using the C500 just in 4K, pulling the footage just to crop in for like stolen bases and stuff, or close plays at the plate, to be able to crop in, and you could crop in and get an HD image that could give you a good look.
And we do that with movies.
Right.
And we stabilize and reframe and things like that. And so, it, like you said, creative process. It actually can improve a film.
Sure.
because you could be more precise with your photography after the fact.
So I got to ask you something. In 6K, in 4K, everybody talks about how, you can take a still, it's all raw. It's really shooting, a lot of times in raw, it's shooting a raw photograph for each frame. It's kind of cool concept. And instead of shooting the way we think of video, it's more like shooting film. And people are pulling these stills many times and using them for billboards, movie posters, all this stuff. And instead of having photography or separate artwork, did you see a 6K still in 6K, or you couldn't see it in 6K, but did you see a still, and what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, at 19 megapixels, that looks like a good Canon DSLR, a Nikon DSLR, right? That's what you take with. So you're right, it is 24 stills a second, of course. And I think that gives some crossover opportunities, which is starting to develop in terms of the motion advertising groups, where they're starting to shoot runway shows and fashion shoots, and they're able to shoot motion and stills concurrently. That is a cool open opportunity. It's a totally new field, and there's a whole bunch of new artists. These aren't filmmakers, these are photographers, right? And ad agencies, and they're going to learn how to utilize this.
Well, I was doing a lot for the New York Post a few years ago when DSLR started to get really popular. I was doing a lot of behind the scenes on their page 6 shoots with all these
actresses, models and stuff, and we were talking about this back then. I came to them with the idea of let's shoot stills and video as one shoot, and instead of don't really do it as a behind the scenes. Let's make a shoot for video, and at certain points go click, 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 click. It's not exactly the same as pulling the raw photos, which is actually better.
Yeah.
But the concept was there. They liked it. We kicked it around a little. Ultimately, they weren't ready for it. But I think that's the future for that kind of stuff.
It totally is, and I think the moral that is hard for people to digest, and we all have to sit and think for a second. Sometimes you have an idea that is actually really profound, but because no one's had it and there's really no roadmap for that, you either think it's not a good idea, or you think everybody must have this idea, because how can I be special?
Or it's not possible.
Or it's not possible, sure.
But anything's possible if you set your mind to it, and you're a man who's proved that with the technology you've brought forth and the things you do. It's amazing. Michael Cioni from Light Iron, thank you so much for joining us, for talking to us a little bit about what you're working on these days, what's going on, and telling us a little bit about the future, too. I like it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. A little inspiration from Michael Cioni this morning here at IBC 2014. We'll be back with a whole lot more on Teradek's live continuing coverage. I'm Michael Artsis. Stick with us.